At Christmas, my parents turned away my 11-year-old at the door. Chloe walked home alone, carrying every gift she brought for them tonight. When I learned what happened, I did not shout or beg. I took action. 5 hours later, their calm world began to crack, and nothing could stop it. My name is Tessa Ward, and I got home late on Christmas night. I expected an empty house, because Chloe planned a sleepover at my parents' place. The first thing I noticed was a burnt smell hanging in the air. I stepped into the kitchen and saw a pan on the stove, blackened. A plate sat on the table, and crumbs marked a careful trail across it. Then my stomach dropped when I saw her shoes and coat by the door. Chloe was home, sitting at the table like she was waiting for judgment. She was not crying, but she was trying to be small in my house. I asked why she was here, and I kept my voice steady on purpose. She blinked once, then said they turned me away at the door. I asked her again, slower, and she repeated the sentence without hesitation. She said they told her there was not enough space for her inside. I asked space for what, and she looked at me like I should know. Space for me, she said, and her fingers clenched around the edge of the plate. That is when I noticed the gifts lined up by the entryway like evidence. I asked if she called me, and she shook her head one time. She said Marianne would not let her use the phone to call home. She said Gordon told her it was fine, and she could walk back. It was dark and cold, and she carried every bag, so nothing got left behind. When she got here, she tried to cook, because Christmas should have food. She burned the pan-opened soup and waited for me in silence. I knelt beside her chair and held her hand until it warmed again. I told her she did nothing wrong, and I meant every word. Then I tucked her into bed and waited until her breathing slowed. After that, I sat at the table alone, staring at those gift bags. I did not plan a fight, I planned a consequence, and I planned it now. I did not lecture Chloe about the stove. Not on that night. We could talk about safety later, but shame had to leave first. I made hot chocolate, added marshmallows, and sat with her. She held the mug with both hands, too quiet, too careful. My phone buzzed. Evelyn Hart, my grandmother. Chloe's face lifted at the ringtone. Then she tried to smile. I answered, switched to video, and set the phone between us. Evelyn appeared with glasses on, and eyes that missed nothing. Chloe said, "Merry Christmas, great-grandma," and her voice wobbled. Evelyn heard it, and asked what happened, calm and sharp. Chloe glanced at me, afraid to cause trouble. Then the truth slipped out. She said Grandma and Grandpa would not let me in. She said they claimed there was not enough space for her. She said they refused the gifts and told her to take them back. Evelyn blinked once, slow, choosing her next words. She asked if Chloe tried to call me. Chloe said her phone died, and she asked to use theirs. She said Marianne refused and said it would make things harder. Chloe said Gordon told her to walk home because it was not far. Evelyn's jaw tightened, and her voice went lower. She asked how long Chloe walked, and Chloe said about 20 minutes. She said she got turned around at first, because we always drive. I felt something cold settle in my chest, and it stayed there. Evelyn looked straight at Chloe through the screen. She told her she did nothing wrong, not one thing. She said a child who shows up deserves kindness, and deserves a chair. Then her eyes cut to me, and she asked if it was true. I nodded, and kept my voice controlled. Evelyn inhaled, and her calm turned hard. She said I gave them that house, so they would have space for family. She said they used that space to shut my great-grandchild out. Then she said she would undo it. I told her you cannot undo a house, and Evelyn almost smiled. She said paperwork can do surprising things when people do not read it. She told me to lock my doors, and she told Chloe to finish her cocoa. She promised next Christmas, Chloe would be where she belongs. After the call ended, I kept the house quiet on purpose. Chloe finished her cocoa, watched a movie, and fell asleep fast. I sat at the table, hearing Evelyn say undo it, and wondering how. Before midnight my phone rang. Marianne. She did not start with hello, or is Chloe okay? She went straight to rage, and asked what I did. I told her I did not do anything, and my voice stayed flat. Marianne snapped that Evelyn called and said the house was not theirs. She accused me of poisoning Evelyn and said I was jealous. I told her Chloe came home alone because you turned her away. There was a pause. Then Marianne said I was changing the subject. She said the house mattered, and Chloe was fine. She said they did not have enough chairs, and it was a full house. I asked why you refused a phone call, and why you sent her into the dark. Marianne shouted that I should have kept Chloe with me. She said I abandoned my child, and now I blame them. My hands went cold. I told her you shut a child out at your door on Christmas night. Marianne laughed and said Chloe is dramatic. Just like me. Then she said we should have excluded you years ago. I told her she will not rewrite what she did. Marianne snapped that Evelyn is not stable, and they will handle her. Then she hung up, and I stood there shaking in silence. I locked my doors, and I barely slept. In the morning, I called Evelyn, again and again. No answer. Chloe came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes and asked if great-grandma was mad. I told her no, none of this is her fault, and I meant it. I grabbed the cocoa mix Evelyn likes and told Chloe we are going to see her. Chloe nodded, small and hopeful. We left mid-morning, and I kept checking my mirrors because my mother's last words would not leave me. Evelyn's apartment was too quiet. I knocked, waited, then used the spare key. Inside, her wheelchair was gone, her blanket was gone, and her bag was gone. Chloe stood behind me holding the cocoa mix. I went to the neighbor across the hall, and she spoke fast. She said my mother Marianne was here early, talking fast, loading the chair into a car. She said Evelyn did not look happy. My stomach dropped. Chloe whispered, maybe they took her to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and we drove there. I knocked hard. Marianne opened the door with a set face. I asked where Evelyn was, and Marianne told me to lower my voice. I asked again, and she said Evelyn is fine, and I am not coming inside. I said, I am here to see my grandmother. Marianne blocked the doorway and said Evelyn is resting, and she does not need my drama. I said, let Evelyn tell me that, and Marianne said no. I pulled out my phone and called the police. I gave the dispatcher facts. My grandmother is missing from her home. Her mobility equipment is gone, and my mother refuses to let me confirm she is safe. Chloe slid her cold hand into mine while we waited. When the officers arrived, Marianne tried to charm them, and it failed. They said they need to see Evelyn, and they did not accept excuses. Evelyn was in the back room, blanket on her lap, eyes sharp. An officer asked if she wanted to be there, and Evelyn said no. The officer asked if she wanted to leave, and Evelyn said no. We took her with us, and Evelyn looked at me in the car and said, call my lawyer. Miles Grant met us that afternoon. He explained the truth in plain words. The house was owned by Evelyn Living Trust, not by my parents. Marianne and Gordon were only beneficiaries, set to receive it later. While Evelyn is alive, she can change that, and she did. My parents' names came off the pages, and my name went on. Evelyn looked at Chloe and said, no one shuts you out again. The next day, my Aunt Brianna Cole showed up at my door, wearing a bright coat and a fake calm. She did not ask how Chloe slept, and she did not ask how Evelyn was doing. She asked about the house, and her eyes flicked past me like she was counting rooms. Brianna always knew how to sound reasonable. That was her talent. She said Marianne is under stress, and Evelyn is confused. She said we should all sit down and talk like adults, and fix this before lawyers get involved. I told her the lawyers are already involved, because my mother took Evelyn without consent. Brianna frowned, then smiled again, and said, families do not call police on family. I said families also do not lock a child out on Christmas night. Brianna's lips tightened, and she tilted her head. She said Chloe is sensitive, and Chloe probably misunderstood. She said Marianne meant well, but there was not enough space. And Chloe should be grateful she was included at all. Chloe stood behind me holding her stuffed animal, hearing every word. I felt heat rise into my face, then settle into something colder. I told Brianna you do not get to rewrite what happened, because it is inconvenient now. Brianna stepped closer, lowered her voice, and asked if I really want to take a house from my own parents. I told her the house was never theirs. It belonged to Evelyn, and Evelyn decided who deserves it. Brianna scoffed and said Evelyn will regret this when she calms down. I said Evelyn is calm, and she is clear. Then Brianna tried a new angle. She said, think about inheritance. Think about legacy. Think about what Chloe will learn. I said Chloe will learn that family does not come with cruelty. Brianna stared at me like I broke a rule. Then she walked away, calling me ungrateful. When the door closed, Chloe whispered that Brianna's voice sounded mean. I told her some people sound gentle when they are doing harm. Marianne did not wait long after Brianna failed. She showed up that evening with Gordon, and they stood on my porch like they owned it. Gordon kept his hands in his pockets, eyes down, silent as always. Marianne started shouting before I even opened the door fully. She said I stole her home, and she said I turned Evelyn against her. She said I embarrassed her in front of police, and now the whole family knows. I told her you embarrassed yourself when you turned Chloe away. Marianne snapped that Chloe is not a child. She is old enough to handle disappointment. I asked her why she refused a phone call. Marianne said I was not answering, so she saved time. I said Chloe's phone was dead, and you knew that. Marianne said, then Chloe should have planned better. The words landed like stones. Gordon finally looked up and said, this is too far, Tessa. He said you are tearing the family apart. I said no, you did that at your doorway. Marianne demanded to see Evelyn, and she demanded to reverse everything. I told her Evelyn is safe, and she is resting, and she does not want you near her. Marianne laughed and called that a lie. She pushed forward like she would step inside, and I stepped back and said stop. I told her if she crosses my threshold, I will call the police again. Gordon grabbed her arm, and Marianne yanked away. She hissed that I will regret this, and she said Chloe will grow up and hate me. Chloe was on the stairs, listening. I looked at my daughter and said Chloe will grow up knowing I protected her. Marianne stared at us both. Then she stormed off, and Gordon followed in silence. After they left, Chloe asked if she caused this. I sat with her on the couch, held her close, and said no. I told her adults made choices, and adults will face consequences. Miles Grant called 2 days later with an update, and his voice was firm. He said the trust changes were filed and recorded. He said my parents have no legal claim to the house now, and no leverage through Evelyn. He asked if Marianne tried to contact Evelyn directly, and I said yes, and we documented it. Evelyn stayed with me in my guest room, and Chloe brought her cocoa each morning. Evelyn asked Chloe about school, and listened like Chloe mattered. One afternoon, Evelyn sat at my kitchen table and told me the part I never heard. She said she gave Marianne and Gordon the house years ago in concept, but not in ownership. She wanted them to have security, and she wanted family gatherings to happen there. She said she wrote the trust to protect herself, in case anyone tried to pressure her later. Evelyn looked tired, but her eyes stayed sharp. She said she watched Marianne spoil Brianna, then punish me. She said she watched Gordon go quiet and pretend it was peace. She said she hoped grandchildren would soften them, but it did not. Evelyn said turning Chloe away was the last proof she needed. She said a child does not need luxury. She needs a chair and a phone call. That night, I blocked Marianne and Gordon on every channel. I blocked Brianna too. I kept one number unblocked for emergencies through Miles Grant. Because I am not reckless, I am done. Chloe asked if that means we do not have grandparents anymore. I told her we have Evelyn, and we have people who treat us with love. Chloe nodded, then hugged Evelyn carefully, like she was afraid she would break. Evelyn hugged her back and said, "You are not a burden. You are a blessing." I turned away so Chloe would not see me cry. Sometimes the most powerful thing is not yelling. It is choosing who gets access to your home, and who does not. 3 days after Miles Grant filed the trust update, a social worker knocked on my door. She introduced herself, spoke gently, and said she received a concern call. She said someone reported that Evelyn Hart was being kept from her home and might be confused. I did not panic, because I recognized the pattern. When Marianne cannot control a room, she recruits a new one. I invited the social worker inside, and I kept my voice calm. Evelyn sat at my kitchen table, sipping cocoa, posture straight. Chloe sat beside her with a coloring book, quiet but watching. The social worker asked Evelyn a few basic questions: date, location, what she wanted. Evelyn answered without hesitation, and her tone was sharp in the cleanest way. She said she chose to stay with me because she felt unsafe with Marianne. She said she did not consent to being moved, and she did not consent to being isolated. She said she is not confused. She is disappointed. The social worker looked relieved, like she wanted the truth to be simple. She asked if Evelyn had access to her lawyer, and I said yes, Miles Grant is on standby. I offered documentation, the police report, the neighbor statement, and the filed paperwork. The social worker thanked me and said she would close the report. When the door shut, Chloe exhaled like she held her breath for hours. She asked if we were in trouble, and I told her no, we are protected. Evelyn reached over and covered Chloe's hand with hers. She said you did nothing wrong, and grown people cannot punish you for their choices. That afternoon, Marianne tried calling from another number. Then, another. I did not answer, and I did not listen to the voicemails. Miles said I should not engage, because engagement feeds escalation. Evelyn asked me to read the messages anyway, and I did. They were not apologies, they were demands, mixed with threats. Marianne insisted Evelyn return, and said I was taking advantage. Gordon wrote one short line, "Stop this," as if I started it. Evelyn listened. Then she asked for a pen. She wrote a statement for Miles, clear and plain. She wrote that she is competent, she is choosing, and she is done being handled. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "Keep the doors locked." She said people who shut a child out will shut an elder up too. Marianne moved from private pressure to public performance by the weekend. She posted a long message online, dripping with pity and pretending to be heartbroken. She wrote that her mother figure Evelyn was being manipulated, and that I was stealing a family home. She wrote that Chloe was being used as a shield, and that I was tearing the family apart. People from church commented with hearts, because hearts are easier than facts. Rihanna shared it, and added a line about respecting parents and honoring elders. I watched the post for 10 seconds, then I closed the app. I did not want Chloe to see her name turned into a weapon. Still, the post reached my neighbors and my coworkers, and it followed me to the grocery store. A woman I barely know asked if everything was okay, and her voice carried judgment. That night I called Miles Grant and asked what truth looks like without drama. Miles told me I can share facts, and I can keep it brief. He said the safest approach is documentation, not emotion. So I wrote a short statement and posted it once. I said Evelyn is safe, and she is with me by her choice. I said police confirmed her wishes, and the trust documents are filed legally. I said any further harassment will be handled through counsel. I did not name Marianne, and I did not name Brianna, because I did not need to. Within an hour, the tone shifted. A few relatives deleted their comments, and others went silent. One cousin messaged me privately and apologized, saying she did not know. Chloe asked why people were being mean on the phone, and I told her this is what happens when adults get caught. They try to move the spotlight and blame someone else. Evelyn asked to make a video, and I hesitated, because I hate feeding a circus. Evelyn said it is not for the circus, it is for the record. So we recorded 30 seconds, calm and clear. Evelyn said she is not missing. She is not confused, and she is not returning. She said anyone using Chloe's name should feel ashamed. I did not post it. Miles did, from his office page, as a legal clarification. The next morning, Marianne deleted her original post. She did not apologize. She just retreated. Chloe smiled at breakfast for the first time in days, and I realized truth does not always end the fight, but it changes who believes the liar. Miles Grant scheduled a formal meeting early the next week, and Evelyn insisted I come. His office smelled like coffee and paper, and the air felt serious. Miles laid out the next steps, slow and lawful, no shortcuts. He said Marianne and Gordon still live in the house, but they have no ownership. He said Evelyn Trust can change possession rights, and we can proceed with notice. He said we will do this clean, so they cannot twist it later. Evelyn signed a few documents with steady hands, then looked at me. She said, "I did not give you this to punish them. I gave you this to protect Chloe." She said a home is for family, not for exclusion. The notice went out that afternoon, delivered properly. Marianne called Miles' office screaming, and Miles ended the call politely. Gordon sent one message to me, asking to talk like adults. I did not respond, and I let Miles handle everything. Over the next 2 weeks, my parents dragged their feet. Then they started packing in a hurry. Brianna showed up at the house with boxes, acting like a helper in a tragedy. I did not go there alone. I went with Miles and a deputy who stood quietly. Marianne tried to cry, then tried to bargain, then tried to threaten. None of it landed, because the paperwork did not care. When they finally left, the house felt different, like a stage after a bad show ends. Evelyn rolled through the front door and paused. She looked at the living room, then at Chloe, then at me. She said, "This is what you deserved all along. A door that opens." Chloe walked from room to room, touching walls like they might disappear. That night, I made a list. Ramps, safer locks, a bedroom on the first floor for Evelyn. I did not feel triumphant. I felt settled. My parents wanted a house without Chloe, and Evelyn refused to reward that. I tucked Chloe into bed and told her next Christmas will be different. Chloe whispered, "Will we have a chair?" I kissed her forehead and said, "Yes, you will have a chair, and you will have a home." We moved into the house in early January, while snow clung to the porch rails. Evelyn rolled through the entryway slowly, watching every corner without speaking. Chloe followed behind her, holding a small bag like a shield. I kept the lights soft, and I kept the television off, for calm. The house still carried my parents' habits, and that made Chloe tense. She jumped at a creak, then looked at me for permission to relax. I told her this house is different now, because the rules are different. We started with simple repairs, a ramp at the front step, and brighter locks. I hired a contractor Evelyn trusted, and Miles Grant reviewed every document. Evelyn chose a bedroom on the first floor, near the kitchen and the bathroom. Chloe helped place blankets, and she asked Evelyn where the cocoa should go. Evelyn smiled and said, "Within reach, always within reach." That line hit me harder than it should, and I turned away to breathe. At school, Chloe kept quiet for a week, then she started talking again. Her teacher told me Chloe stopped flinching when adults raised their voices. She started raising her hand, and she stopped shrinking in her chair. One evening, she asked if Marianne will come back, and I said no. I said the house belongs to Evelyn, and Evelyn chose to protect us. Chloe nodded slowly, then asked if that means she belongs too. I told her, yes, she belongs, because love does not require permission slips. Evelyn began physical therapy twice a week, and she hated the exercises. She did them anyway, because she hates losing more than she hates pain. Each time she stood, even for seconds, Chloe clapped like it was a show. Evelyn acted annoyed, then winked at her, and Chloe giggled. I watched them, and I realized what I lost before. A family that shows up and stays steady, even when it is inconvenient. By late January, Marianne and Gordon had moved into a short-term rental nearby. Brianna visited them often, and she played messenger, like it was a job. She told people I stole the house, and that Evelyn was confused. She said I was using Chloe to guilt an elder, and she said it with a smile. I kept my head down, because attention was their oxygen. Still, the rumors reached Chloe's school, and a parent asked questions at pickup. I answered once, calm and factual. Then I walked away. Miles Grant told me to document everything, and I listened this time. 2 weeks later, Marianne tried another report, this time to the police. She claimed I was refusing her access to Evelyn, and she demanded a welfare check. The officer arrived, polite and tired, and asked Evelyn a few questions. Evelyn answered clearly, then asked the officer to write down one sentence. She said I was taken without consent, and I will not be handled again. The officer nodded, apologized for the disruption, and left. That night, Marianne sent an email through a new address, full of soft blame. She said she was sorry for misunderstandings, and she said we should meet for peace. She wrote that Chloe deserves grandparents, and that I am being cruel. I forwarded it to Miles, and he sent a formal reply. He stated that contact goes through counsel, and harassment will escalate. Gordon sent one text to me, saying we can fix this quietly. I did not respond, because quiet is how they hide. Chloe asked why Marianne keeps trying, and I told her the truth in simple words. Some adults love control more than they love people, and losing control scares them. Chloe stared at her cocoa, then said, "That is not love, is it?" I told her no. Love is a door that opens, and a phone that gets answered. In February, Miles Grant scheduled one final meeting to seal the next steps. Evelyn signed an updated plan for her care and a clear line for decision-making. She named me to act if she cannot, and she did it without hesitation. Miles explained it carefully, and he asked Evelyn if anyone pressured her. Evelyn said the only pressure came from Marianne, and she wants it on record. Miles filed the statement, and the file became a wall my parents could not climb. After that, the noise faded, because legal paper does not argue. Mariana stopped visiting our street, and Marianne stopped calling from new numbers. Gordon went quiet, and that quiet felt like retreat, not peace. Chloe began asking about next Christmas, in a cautious, hopeful voice. She asked if Evelyn will be with us, and I said yes. She asked if we will invite anyone else, and I told her we will invite only safe people. Evelyn listened from the living room, then called Chloe over. She said a family table is not a prize, it is a promise. She said if someone breaks the promise, they lose the seat. Chloe nodded like she understood, then asked if she can help cook again. I told her yes, and we will cook together, with a timer and no shame. That night, I walked through the house, checking locks and lights, like a ritual. I realized I was not bracing anymore. I was settling. My parents wanted a home without Chloe in it, and they lost the home. Evelyn wanted a home that protects a child, and she built it with one decision. Sometimes justice is not loud, it is simply permanent. Fast forward to next Christmas, Chloe and I are in the house my parents used to claim. Not because I wanted a trophy, but because Evelyn wanted truth reflected in paperwork. Evelyn moved in with us after everything happened, and we made the place livable for her body, not just comfortable for our pride. We built a ramp, widened doorways, added grab bars, and set up a bedroom on the main floor. Funny how not enough space turns into plenty of space when you stop using space to punish people. Chloe helped pick a new blanket for Evelyn's chair, and she asked where the cocoa should live. Evelyn said within reach, always within reach, and Chloe smiled like she understood the meaning. The house is worth about $350,000, and Evelyn had about $200,000 in savings. She changed the beneficiaries on all of it, with Miles Grant watching every signature. Part went into an emergency cushion for Evelyn care, because security matters more than appearances. The rest went where Evelyn wanted it to go. A college fund for Chloe, and a future Chloe will never have to beg for. Marianne and Gordon got exactly what they earned. Nothing. Nothing. They tried calling, apologizing, blaming, then switching the order, like that changes the story. First they said they were sorry, then they said Chloe was dramatic. First they said Evelyn was confused, then they said I manipulated her. Brianna tried the soft voice again, talking about unity and tradition and forgiveness. I did not answer. Chloe is different now, quieter in a calmer way, not the make myself small, so I do not get rejected way. On Christmas Eve, we hung lights together, and Chloe placed an extra chair at the table without asking. Evelyn watched her do it, then nodded once, proud and satisfied. That night, Chloe whispered that she feels safe here, and I felt my chest loosen for the first time in a year. People keep asking if I went too far, and I always think about the same moment. I think about an 11-year-old standing outside a door, holding gifts, being told she does not fit. I think about a phone being refused, and a child being sent into the dark. That was the line, and they crossed it without shame. So no, I do not think I went too far. I think I finally went far enough to protect my child, and to protect an elder who deserved dignity. Evelyn is still sharp, still stubborn, and still quietly pleased with herself. Chloe is still kind, but she is not fragile. She knows what a boundary is, and she knows it is not cruelty. It is a fence around peace. Marianne and Gordon can tell their version forever, but paperwork does not care about performance. Neither do I. I do not answer calls that rewrite history, and I do not open doors for people who shut my child out. If someone wants a seat at my table, they earn it with consistency, not excuses. Next Christmas, and the Christmas after that, Chloe will have a chair. She will have a home. And she will never again learn love as a test she must pass.